Hey, what's up guys? It's Anime King, and today I'm back with a movie. As usual, 100% done by me. What if Naruto fed on Chakra? It might sound rather simple, but trust me, there's a lot to unpack there. I got this idea sometime back and I figure I'll turn it into a movie for you guys to enjoy. So yeah, if you enjoy these kind of movies and you want to see more, just go ahead and comment down below and tell me that you want more movies and I'll be sending a lot more your way, guys. And also, if you're new, don't forget to go ahead and check out the other channels: Anime King 2, Anime King 3, and Anime Symbol, guys. Yes, that's right, I indeed have 3 more channels, which I post what if on every single day. I'll be leaving all of the links down in the description. So without further ado or wasting more time, how about we jump right into this brand new movie? Let's begin now, guys. There comes a time in life where a single moment will be able to reshape the future, perhaps even existence itself. And this single moment that will cause events to spiral out of control was right here in front of everyone to witness. However, it went unnoticed by many, having no idea that it was even taking place. Sadness. That was what Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha, was feeling at the moment. A lot of sadness coursing through him as he looked at the boy, knowing that he just crushed his dreams, crushed his hope of ever being a ninja. However, it was something that cannot be helped. You see, the boy's name was Naruto Uzumaki. From a young age, he has been in and out of the hospital. It was his bones. His bones were fragile. His body was weak. Even now, the boy was seated in a wheelchair. His body could not support him. And given the fact of his size and how much body fat he had, it was truly ridiculous. He was small. He was 6 years old, and yet he didn't look like your average 6 years old. He looked like he was just turning 3. Not in terms of height, but the body ratio. He was really slim. And it wasn't because he wasn't eating good. Hiruzen had been there for the boy, given what he's been through. Not just his situation, but the way those people look at him. And he could not even tell the boy why, wanting to keep it a secret from even him. So now, as he told him that his dream of becoming a ninja was something that could never happen, and he saw that look in his eyes, he tried to cheer him up. But how would you cheer him up after telling him that? It was hard. Even as Hiruzen left that night, he left the Anvu stand by to watch Naruto, fearing with his hope and dreams now down the toilet that he would do something extreme. And that was not the only problem that would follow, because this boy was no normal boy. Inside of him lies the most powerful beast that those of Konoha ever witnessed after it rampaged through the entire village 6 years ago. Naruto sat by the window in his wheelchair as the rain poured down outside. All he could do was look, always look. He always wondered why. Why does his life have to be so bad? He saw other kids playing around, having fun with their friends. Yet, He was looked at like he was some kind of monster. He was treated like he was not one of them. They pretended like he was some sort of abomination. He heard that word once before, and he knew that it was something bad, despite him being so young, as he hung his head in shame. A few years passed by. Naruto sat at his windows most day and saw kids going to the academy, a dream that he would never have, a dream that he would never be fulfilled in. And it was painful to watch, tremendously so. Hiruzen came by every now and again. However, the more time passed, the more sicker Naruto got, and the more cynical he got as well. His arms started to get much weaker. He could barely lift a cup of water that was full to the brim. He's been keeping most of this to himself, however. His checkup at the hospital would reveal a lot of this. Naruto stirred, confused. The last thing he remembered was thinking about his arms getting weaker. He had no idea where he was. He heard voices. Unknowingly, he was in the hospital. Standing there was Hiruzen Sarutobi, and also the doctor as well. They have been trying their best. Naruto was now 10 years old. They have been trying their best to find out why was his body reacting this way, but they had no idea what it was. The only thing they could say was the Nine Tails was affecting the boy, and the way things are right now, it did not seem like he would make it to his 11th birthday. The doctor left as Hiruzen sat there. The man was looking down at the poor child, who hasn't had a good life, everything taken away from him. The best thing he could do was give him some truth. However, that was also a problem in on itself. What was going to happen after the boy's demise? As a lot came to mind. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a man entering the room. His name was Danzo Chimera. Hiruzen was not pleased to see him here, especially this time. You've wasted enough time. This child is clearly dying. It's time that we make preparations to remove the beast before his death. Take the beast along with him. Be quiet, Hiruzen said, giving Danzo a harsh glare. Walking in here like he owned the place and talking out loud. Hiruzen's gaze focused back towards Naruto as he checked on the boy. However, Naruto was asleep, ushering the man out of the room as they stood there in the hall. Luckily, it was one of the many private rooms. Hiruzen was not happy with Danzo being here. I told you, I will find another solution, he said. Danzo looked at the man. Your sympathy has only made you weaker over time. Were you not there on that day when the Nine Tails ravaged through this village? What do you think will happen if the beast is able to reconstruct outside without a proper host? Knowing of what we've done to it over the past couple of years, concealing that beast of hate and rage. How much more life will be lost just because you cannot let go? I told you this from the boy's sickness started to become a problem, and yet you constantly waste time believing that he will get better. The doctors, not even the best, can find out what is wrong with him. You brought in so many specialists that are even more efficient in these areas than your own former student, and yet there has been no result. The boy will die, and we need to make precautions before that. Let me guess, you have a suitable host. Danzo was calm. So another power grab, he said. Hiruzen was not pleased, as he knew that Danzo was trying to get the Nine Tails under his control. Starting from him leaking the information about who Naruto was, he was sure that he was the one, but he had no proof. However, as much as Hiruzen despised his actions for that, Naruto was dying unfortunately. However, in the brief moments when Danzo entered the room and spoke about Naruto, Naruto was awake. He simply could not voice his own opinion. But before Hiruzen could make his way over towards him, he blacked out once again. So as Naruto came to, hours later, his mind swirling with what the man had said. For the next 2 hours, Naruto's eyes were closed as he racked his brain, his body too weak to do much more, trying to understand what he meant by that. And that is when he remembers something that opened his eyes wider than before to the truth. Because he wasn't very mobile, Naruto was always focusing on things, watching. He's gotten really good at reading people's lips, having sat by his window countless times. And he remembered reading this guy's lip before. He said monster. 9. And that was all he got before the guy turned away. He thought about his birth. He was born on the same day when the Nine-Tails attack. It was so obvious, right in front of his eyes, but he never took notice of it because he was too focused on his current situation. And that man said, remove the beast. That meant it was sealed inside of him. He knew that ninjas could do all sorts of things. While he did not attend classes, he did read books. It made up for his lack of mobility. He liked to imagine that he could do things. And he knew that ninjas could seal objects inside of others. So, it was all a lie. Speaking of earlier, Naruto had been getting cynical over the years. Jealousy, anger, rage at the world, rage at everything around him. So as his eyes were closed and he lay there in bed, his rage was growing. What if this beast was what was causing his sickness? And all this time the old man, the only one that he actually cared for in this village, knew. And yet, he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing about it. He did not even tell him. How could he do that? Naruto screamed and rage in his mind as a nurse entered the room, coming to check up on him. The monitor was increasing as Naruto's heart was beating much faster. She raised her hand. However, in that moment, for the first time, maybe it was because of the rage, something clicked inside of Naruto. He felt something, a hunger that he's never felt before. Something that he's been lacking, something that he needs. Naruto did possess chakra, but because of his form, he never truly unlocked his own chakra, as it would be too strenuous for his own body. Therefore, he was living like your standard civilian. However, in that moment, maybe it was because he was on the verge of death, maybe it was his rage. Many options were there. Many things that would lead him down a path that he could not recover from. His hand lashed out, using the last remaining strength that he had, and gripped onto hers. It caught her off guard, but before she could say something, Naruto had moved forward, pulling himself up. Perhaps if this did not work, he would die, given the amount of strength that he was currently using. His canines started to glow. They were glowing blue. Naruto sank them into her flesh, right on her wrists. She screamed, but it quickly died in her throat as Naruto started to suck. And he was not sucking blood. It was her chakra. Blue streams of lines started to run from her head to her toes, converging on the point that Naruto was sucking on. Her eyes grew distant and foggy before they lost all their coloring. Her skin grew pale. Her body dried up. She still had blood inside of her, but her life essence was being stolen right in front of her closing eyes. The small scream that she released, the doctor had came in, fearing the worst. When he saw the woman falling, he was confused as Naruto shot out of the bed. Rather shocking for someone of his stature. He gripped onto the man and sank his teeth into his throat. And once again it was not blood, but chakra. All of the man's chakra converging and siphoning out of his form. The more he sought, the stronger he grew. His messy dull blonde hair got brighter. His blue eyes glow even more. As a vicious smile greeted his lips as the body fell. Naruto landed on the ground, shocked to himself as he saw his feet. He was walking. A smile graced his features as he jumped up and down, despite the two corpses on the ground. He was so delighted, so happy as he bounced around, joy radiating from him. That is when he dropped down to the ground and gripped his skull. Memories, thousands of memories, flashing through his mind. At some point, his body started to learn and adapt to what was going on as he could understand what he was seeing. His head snapped to the sky like he was possessed, like he was in a trance. When he finally keeled over, taking very deep breaths. The situation caused another nurse to enter the room. When she saw him, he looked up towards her as he could see the chakra running inside of her. His glowing blue eyes. He launched. Meanwhile, Harrison Saratobi, despite his anger towards the situation, knew that he couldn't afford to waste any more time. That is why he sent word, hating the fact that he had to call his student for something horrendous like this. But it must be done. Jiraiya was a Fuinjutsu master, and his help was needed. Danzo, having seen Naruto decline in health, had already taken precautions to ensure they would find a suitable host that would be able to control the power of the Nine Tails. As much as he did not want to rely on the man, or even use him, Harrison had been negligent in his own duties, believing that Naruto would pull through. His mind wandered to Danzo and him quickly making these moves. For a point there he thought that Danzo was the one that had poisoned Naruto. However, he had these specialized doctors check everything, and the man was not involved. So Harrison was interrupted as someone burst into his office. It was a Chunin, looking rather razzled, having run here as quickly as he could. "Hokage-sama," he said. "The hospital." Immediately, Harrison guards were alerted as they moved into their position, as Harrison immediately got to his feet. Moments later, it was a panic, getting into the hospital, as those that were able to flee fled for their life. The others were trying to hold him off. There were ninjas there. However, none of them was above Chunin level. However, Naruto was so young, and yet his strength grew so much. It was truly frightening as Harrison raced inside, followed by the Anvus, and what he saw caught him off guard. Bodies hang from the ceiling, their heads having crashed through the ceiling. Pieces were over the place, surrounded by two Chunins that remain as one of them drive a kunai to his chest. He knocked it away and flipped, lashing onto him. Harrison was so stunned as he watched his sweet young boy sink his teeth into the man's throat. And in less than 5 seconds, the Chunin crumbled down to the ground. The other one backing up as Naruto lashed out towards him, but a fist slammed right in his face, courtesy of one of the Anvus, stunning him back as he flipped, only for another to appear behind him and sweep his leg from underneath him. as another one slammed him into the ground, breaking it. He flipped Naruto on his stomach and restrained his arms. Naruto was wailing, trying to get away. His gaze then finally met Hiruzen. "You liar! I'll kill you next," he shouted. Hiruzen was so caught off guard that he barely reacted to the situation, as the Anvu chopped Naruto in his neck, knocking him out. The injured Chunins were one thing, but Anvus were on a completely different level. Time skip. 2 days. That is how long he's been in here. That is what he's aware of. And since waking up, the Hokage had not come to speak to him. Naruto had to say that he lost his mind back there. It was the first time, and he feasted on so much chakra that, well, it put him in a different deranged state of mind. But after sublimating and calming for the past 2 days, he finally was in control of himself once more. And he was certain of one thing: he wasn't strong enough yet to defeat anyone, especially not the Hokage. Naruto felt different. For the first time, he felt so happy. He knew what he did. He killed a lot of people. He slaughtered without hesitation and remorse by drinking their chakra. But it made him powerful. It made him unstoppable. And it was so amazing. Why? Why didn't he feel any empathy? Why didn't he feel pain for their deaths? Perhaps being confined and locked away for so long had finally driven him mad. He started to laugh. The Anvu that was stationed outside turned his gaze toward the cell, as the child was just in there laughing erratically, again and again and again. The food that they placed inside was not touched. He did not touch a scrap of it, and his body seemed to be functioning just fine. Then again, it hasn't been that long. Soon hunger would overtake anything else. But given what he's heard already, perhaps it already did. Time skip. I don't understand, Jiraiya said, trying to rack his brain about the situation, having finally returned back to the village. Hiruzen had not gone to visit Naruto, and it's been 4 days. He did not know what to even say. Those that survived saw that Naruto did what he did. Naruto killed over 30% of the medical staff. He devoured the chakra of the injured patients. Those that were already injured, it did not take much for them to lose their life. And now all of this was being told to Jiraiya, who just came to handle the situation. And he had no idea how to accept or react in a situation like this. The people were getting restless. They start to get angry because hearing that Naruto commit such atrocities had them thinking about the past, had them thinking about the Nine Tails, and the lines between the Nine Tails and the boy started to blur a lot. I hear what you're saying, but it just doesn't make sense, Jiraiya said. Boom! Both men snapped their head immediately when they heard that. What the hell is that now? Hiruzen feared that the civilians finally lost their cool, but that explosion was not within the civilian area. Moments later, racing down the halls, arriving to Anvu HQ. The body of 3 Anvus were lying motionless on the ground. One of them was stirring. Hiruzen immediately moved towards him. What happened? The man was in pain as he looked towards Hiruzen. Hiruzen noticed that the mask, the lower half, had been ripped off, and there was a strange slash like claws. His eyes widened, fearing the worst. The others gather. Find him immediately, Hiruzen said. I'm going as well, said Jiraiya. He took off. A part of him already blaming himself for not being here, as he never came to truly inspect and take on the situation about the boy, despite knowing perhaps it was his own guilt, knowing that he failed before and feeling like he would simply fail again. After all, he always considered himself a failure for the things that he were unable to prevent, as he took off with more speed. Meanwhile, racing throughout the village was Naruto, as he immediately made his way towards one of the forest areas. After arriving there, his eyes closed as he was running through the forest. The next moment, a violent, reddish-orange aura surged around him. His eyes opened and they became completely red. His speed increased drastically. More, he said, as he kept on blazing through, running through the forest at his fastest. As he had only one thing on his mind, leaving Konoha. He didn't possess the necessary strength to defeat the top classes here. He would be annihilated. So he had to flee until he was stronger. Having a good layout of the village, after sucking the chakra of the Anvu, only one of them was truly dead. The other two were simply blasted by the explosion and knocked out. Naruto went through different escape locations, running underground through a tunnel, making his way. His strength and speed had risen to unbelievable superhuman strength and superhuman speed, which allowed him to punch straight through solid stone like it was nothing. As he took off, running away from the village, but even then, they were still chasing him. He brought his hand together, trying something. Going through hand sign the next moment, something formed beside him. It was a clone. A smile that was there increased even more as he created 5 more clones, and then 5 more, and then 5 more. They all split in different directions. As the Anvus raced through the trees, Jiraiya blazing after Naruto when he saw another one. Unable to tell the original from the fake, he would simply have to take each and every one of them down, as he descended upon one of them and knocked him over the head, but he poofed away. He jumped towards the other one, but he turned and lashed at Jiraiya. The Sannin ducked under the blow and gripped the boy by the stomach area and sent him through a tree, but he too poofed away as well. Damn it, he cursed. He need to find the original. The original was making his way, as he thought about how he arrived here. It was on the 3rd day. Flashback. Naruto could see Chakra. Yes, looking at a human, as he started to refer to himself as something different. He had no idea why. However, gazing at someone, he could see Chakra, but not even just by looking at them. Between him and the Anvu was a solid steel door, and yet he could see the flicker of embers. That lovely, rich, succulent Chakra. He licked his lips, feeling hungry once again. As he looked down, "Now that's interesting," he said. Something was there, something inside of him. His hands were bound, so were his legs. Bound enough to stop him from trying anything stupid, but not enough to stop him from eating. He closed his eyes and tried to focus. He tried his hardest, waiting and searching for that feeling, and he felt it. The next moment, Naruto found himself within a strange location. The first thing he noticed was the water. As he pulled himself up, he then took notice of the ceiling. His eyes widened in shock as he couldn't believe it. Above him there was a pipe, a dripping, leaking pipe. However, that is not what was concerning at the moment. The pipe had the most chakra that he's ever seen, up until he's Well, up until now, Naruto jumped upwards, gripping onto it as he sunk his teeth into it. And he started to suck. At first, he felt a ripping, burning sensation in his throat. But soon after he felt it. Power. Unbelievable power coursing through him. He kept on absorbing. Again and again and again and again and again. Until his body felt so flush and ripe with power. In the outside world, as the Anvu was situated there, he was once again greeted to mad laughter. Having enough of that, he slammed the tip of his blade on the door. "Would you shut the hell up?" he said. The Hokage had shifts put on standby just in case for this boy. He was a high priority risk. As he turned his gaze to look through the small hatch that was there, that was also boarded up, until he looked down, and what he saw shocked him. A hand was inside of his stomach. The next moment, the door was ripped by the other hand, now coated in chakra. Alarms started to immediately blare as the chains had been shattered, breaking through, alerting the securities. But it was too late. By the time the other two Anvu arrived, Naruto had sucked this one dry. He looked up. His features were feral. His teeth were elongated even more. His eyes were red, coursing with power. They both jumped towards him as he opened his mouth, releasing a violent scream that was backed by so much chakra, amplifying waves that sent both men sailing. He turned his face to the wall and proceeded to break it asunder with a scream, focusing it. He started to run as he ended up falling over the memories of the corrosive chakra of the fox flashing through his mind. The memories of the Anvu as well as he got to his feet. Knowing certain path and location because of said Anvu, he ran, immediately making his way to Training Ground 27, the fastest way to get out of the village. Back to the original time. Hiruzen Sarutobi knew that Naruto was gone. How? How would he possibly know to take that training ground out of the others? How was he able to access the Nine Tails chakra? It was his own ignorance, trying to wait for not going to get answers right away. From the medical report, the boy had drained their chakra dry. It seems they finally found what Naruto's body was lacking. It was chakra. Around a few hours later, Jiraiya arrived, having taken down as much of the clones as possible, but he was unable to truly find the original. Somehow Naruto knew the ins and outs. He knew how to divert, he knew how to escape. As they wondered to themselves, given the essence of chakra, did the boy somehow gain the memories of those that he absorbed? It was the only thing that could explain the situation. And now here he was, with a bunch of angry villagers, to those that lost so many during that attack, and Anvus that were taken, ninjas that were killed. He was left with all of this problem. It was his fault. If he'd simply listened to Danzo, perhaps this could have all been prevented. But there was one thing for certain. When Naruto is found and brought back, it was not back to the same life that he once lived. Hiruzen said to himself as he made his way off, as he saw the people that were gathered. People that have lost faith in his ability to lead them by allowing the one that committed all of these atrocities to escape from right under their noses. Within the shadows, Danzo Shamura, who had started this by revealing the boy's status, reveled at the comments that he was hearing. This was his opportunity, and it was coming up really quickly, as the title was on the line. Meanwhile, after 3 days, as he ensured that he would not be found, he knew who was hunting him. He saw them in the face of the clone, Jiraiya of the Sannin. Everyone that he absorbed, he gained their memories. He gained the ability to learn what they can do. Their chakra became his chakra. Their talents, what they've been through, it was imprinted in their very essence. That being their chakra, and he devoured that whole. Thus he was able to create the Shadow Clone Jutsu. After absorbing the Fox Chakra though, he saw things. People. He learned things that were strange. Unfortunately though, he was unable to consume the entire Fox. The chakra was simply too raw, too potent. Naruto was currently standing in the rain, naked as the day that he was born. As the rain washed over him, lightning crackled within the heavens. As he was standing up really high, a danger for lightning strike, but he's never felt so amazing. He loves the way he feels, no remorse, no empathy, no pain of knowing about the life that he's ruined. He simply stopped caring, and it was so amazing, so delightful. His mind was so focused, so energized, his body felt unlimited. He felt like he had no limits, no limitation, as he wondered how much more power he could gain, breaking through all of his limits. He also noticed the physical changes with each person that he absorbed. His body seemed to be reaching the stages of pinnacle perfection. He was taller, stronger. He simply felt like he was high on life. As he threw his head back and laughed, within the violent thunder and lightning that went on in the background. However, things were just getting started. Time skip. Jiraiya of the Sannin was appalled to the sight in front of him. So much death, so much destruction. Jiraiya thought to himself as he gazed around. It was known as the Netsuko village. He had fond memories of this place, memories that he mostly created in his own mind. The village consists of all women. He went against one of them in the past, and upon defeating her, he was supposed to marry her. But he told her that he had eyes for someone else. So they made a wager that his student would be the one to do the marrying in the future. His pupil. However, the way things were going, that was never going to happen. 3.5 years. There has been sightings. Bodies that were found drained and dry. Bodies that hail from different villages, showing that Naruto was moving all over the world. However, this was a first. This was the first time that he ever did something on this large of a scale. Yes, they found bandit camps. Yes, they found small settlements, but this was a village consisting of all women. They had hundreds of members here, and Jiraiya could not find a single one of them alive. The place was on fire. The 3 mountain hills that they own and reside in were burning. Corpses were all over the place, having been sucked dried. How long did it take him to do something like this? To individually absorb their chakra? It would have taken much longer for him to do it to everyone. How did no one escape? How stronger has Naruto truly gotten? They've learned that the more that he absorbs, the stronger he becomes. Hiruzen Sarutobi was still the Hokage of Konoha, and he had to pull the extremes to stay the position, knowing that if someone like Danzo was to take over, that wouldn't be good for anyone. Hiruzen put a hit on Naruto's head, a hit that wasn't only for Konoha, dead or alive, to show the people that their voices were being heard. Groups upon groups gathered as they demanded justice for those that died, claiming that it was just like the past, and they were waiting to see if Hiruzen was going to defend the pariah once again. Danzo hated the fact that Hiruzen made this move, as it gave him a hold on the people once again, that he was doing the right thing. Furthermore, allowing those missing ninjas, ronins, and anyone to go after Naruto made the search much larger. He placed Naruto as a S-rank threat. There was many reasons for that. The more chakra he absorbed, the more it added to his fuel, the stronger he became. There were a few that were able to survive his wrath, and gave eye-viewing testimony of what Naruto has truly become. And it was more terrifying than Hiruzen even believed. Countless has went after him in the years, but no one has been able to properly tie him down. Jiraiya was always one step behind. Naruto was getting across the elemental nation, moving around and doing so much. And now, this was the biggest one, wiping out the entire village, absorbing each and every one of their chakra. That alone must have granted him ridiculous amount of strength. And what happened to the ones before that? The thought was actually frightening to Jiraiya, because he knew when the time come, it wouldn't be a fight of bringing back. It would be a fight to the death, because the innocent child that Hiruzen once knew, that child died on that day, and now they were dealing with an enemy of the entire elemental nation, an enemy that Konoha was trying to cover before. It becomes global, but given the situation, given this entire village that was swallowed up, he was afraid that it was far too late for that. Time skip. Screaming. A lot of painful screaming could be heard. However, someone was simply annoyed. Enough! The head of the person was sent sailing across the room without their body. His voice had gotten deeper, rougher. He had aged, but it wasn't naturally. Walking, dressed in a black and red trench coat, a dark shirt underneath, dark pants. His hand, not even dripping with a drop of blood despite just taking someone's head off with his bare hand. He made his way, his gaze focusing towards the three terrifying men that stood in front of him, as they just watch him knock that guy's head off. Then again, he wasn't exactly a friend of theirs. He was simply a prisoner. They were the best of their best in the field that they were a part of, as they were terrified, having just been kidnapped. However, two clones appeared beside Naruto, as they descend upon them, draining them dry. Only Naruto could see the thread that connected the clones to him, because he could see chakra in a way that no other could. But that thread was not exactly just chakra alone. It was his life essence that was connected to these clones, allowing him to feed through his clones. Once they were done, all of the memory, everything came back to him. He was standing at an impressive 6 feet, given his former height 3 years ago. Well, this was impressive. His eyes were a deeper shade of blue. His skin had flushed out, creamy. Even his hair was much brighter, flush. His body grown muscular. powerful as he stood. He rejoiced in all the chakra that he absorbed. But that was nothing compared to what he's been doing for the past couple of years. It's been fun. However, he had a dream. He had a goal. Stepping forward, having got the information that he desired from those three worms, he gazed forward towards a woman, unconscious, on a table, and a smile greeted his features. Flashback. Naruto had grown. 1 year. That is how long it had been since he escaped Konoha. There he stood. In front of him was the colossal Nine Tails. However, colossal wasn't a word that should be used for this situation. The Nine Tails had shrunken, drastically so, constantly having his chakra drained out through the pipes. Despite the seal, Naruto was able to drink the chakra, and the seal was infused with chakra itself, allowing him to drink from the seal as well. However, it was much more awful perhaps, due to its connection with death. Speaking of death, his parents was another issue. They sealed their chakra inside of it, but he simply absorbed them without knowing. He did gain memories from them though, as their chakra did contain their memories, their experience. So yes, he knew who his parents were. Another thing he was lied about. The Nine Tails tried its best to look intimidating and dangerous, but as the bars of the cell flew open, the seal was no longer there. Naruto did not need the Nine Tails, and the beast leaving him would not kill him because, looking up, the entire sky was Naruto chakra. Every single person that he absorbed, their chakra became a part of his, and the more he absorbed, the stronger he becomes. The Nine Tails finally seen its opportunity to rush outwards, to crush Naruto as it raised its paw, but it was stopped. It could not crush him. Smiling, Naruto jumped back. The beast tried to catch him, but a golden chain looped around its neck and slammed it down on the ground. All of its limbs were bound. The chains coming from Naruto's back. He jumped and landed on his chest. It opened its mouth, but Naruto muzzled it, holding it tight. Finally, let's end this, shall we? He said as he sank his teeth into the flesh of the Nine Tails. He drank him. He drank every single essence of the beast. The Nine Tails being chakra itself. All the beast could do was try to get away as Naruto swallowed him whole. In that moment, Naruto keeled over in the real world. Despite the pain of the corrosive chakra merging truly with his laughter got more insane and insane, loving every single second of it. Every single moment was like he was drunk, like he was high, and it was so amazing. The more he drank, the more powerful he becomes, and there was no stopping him. His power reaching new heights, growing phenomenally as he opened his eyes. The mere opening of his eyes, his power fluctuates, cracking and destroying the environment around him as he threw his head back and laughed to the heavens. Back to the original time. That was one aspect that took place over the past 3 years. The aspect of his growth was one of the things that he loved the most. He's not felt a shred of empathy. He's not felt remorse, pain, anguish for anything that he's done. He's gotten so ridiculously powerful and he doesn't plan on stopping. However, gazing towards a woman in front of him, she had long white hair. Her eyes were closed, of course, as she was clothed. However, there was much skin that was showing. Naruto stepped towards her, Flashback. In this world, some people are born less than less. While many people had the saying that everyone was born equal. The only ones that truly say that was the ones that were on top. And she has known that from a very young age. Her name was Vados. Vados Aradoshi. She came from a small family. There was nothing special about them. Her home was also common as well. Her father was a baker. He owned a bakery. Her mother and him working there, but her father did most of the baking. Her life was good until she was 4 years old, when she watched her parents die in front of her eyes. Vados was taken. However, she was able to escape because in that same caravan, there was a plan being set by the ones that were captured because she was the only girl or boy. And they end up breaking the leverage that allowed it to slump. They all scattered away. She ran away. And she met two people, a boy and a girl that they helped her. Despite being young themselves and having no idea where to go, they were also orphans. She spent 4 years with them. However, she watched her male best friend. His name was Hunto. She watched as he was killed in front of her eyes. It was an accident. They stumbled upon a skirmish that was taking place between two different ninjas. And an explosion tag blew him to sunders. The ninja that were there, the one that eventually won the battle, was the worst one that could have won the battle. Her other friend Kehara also met her end when she tried to stand up for Vados. The man that won the battle wasn't so pleasant. Seeing two little girls, despite being a ninja, despite the fact that he should have some honor, he was a scum of the earth. Yes, he was. Using her own life to save hers, she watched another person as she grew close to die. Luckily, reinforcements came and it allowed her to flee. She had nowhere, nothing. She was eventually captured by a very powerful man in the sense of his, army. He was weak, but he had a lot of people. She was sold off to an underground traffic ring. She went places after places. She never got broken like some of the others. She always tried to fight back, but as the time went by, she soon realized that it was pointless. Horrendous things happened to her, and she was thrown away like she was garbage. Time and time again, she was sold to others because of her rather eccentric look, white hair, and glowing silver eyes. She was seen as an oddity and could be sold for a lot. So her life has been hell. She understood suffering, and she was just a weak girl that couldn't do anything about it. She had no idea why she still fights sometimes. And even when she do, they took it as a game because they knew that she was defenseless. She wanted to just to end it all, but she was refrained from doing so due to the shackles once again being put up at auction. However, on that day, she watched as a person entered. She was 15 years old and she's been through so much. She's seen so much, and she watched this person drain everyone dry. At first she thought he was drinking their blood, but she did not see a drop of it on his face or anything. But she did see the blue streams that flew from their throat into his mouth. She saw his eyes glow blue. One after another, he slaughtered. He absorbed. She was the only one left. She stood there in her shackles, unmoving. He looked towards her and licked his lips. This is it. She was going to die. This is where she meet her end. Her life was over, Vados thought to herself. Perhaps this was for the best. So why? Why did she try to fight? It made no sense. What the hell was wrong with her? She screamed at herself as she punched him in the face, her arm moving on its own. Why did she want to live? After all of that, she didn't deserve to live anymore. Why? Why? She screamed in her mind. He was surprised by her hitting him. He gripped her throat and slammed her into the wall. She punched him once again. He looked rather confused and released her. She crumbled down to the ground, tears coming from her eyes. He scooted down in front of her. Tell me, why exactly do you wish to fight, even after seeing what I've done to the others? You have to know that there is no possible way to survive. He said, looking at her. Naruto was curious. This one piqued his interest. She was defenseless. She was weak. A weak woman that could not do a single thing to him. She watched what he did, yet she did not run or cower away. She tried to fight him. He was confused by that way of thinking. Having become a monster that scares even monsters by what he does, people tend to run away, but she tried to fight, and he needed to know why. She looked up at him. Despite the tears, she was making no sound. I don't know, she said. I don't know why I still fight. There is no reason. You interest me, he said, picking her up and throwing her over his shoulder. She did not try to fight then, though, confused why she was not dead yet. Sometime later, she found herself being seated in a chair. Why am I still alive? You killed everyone else. I'm not a special person. I'm just a weak woman that has been unable to save anything I love, anyone I love. The world has not been kind to you, he said. Let me see. Before she could say anything, Naruto sank his teeth into her neck. He's learned how to control the stimulation of chakra without killing a person. Her eyes went completely white. After a moment, Naruto pulled back. No, that was horrendous. And they called me a monster, he said. Then again, I suppose I am. She touched her neck. What did you do to me? She said. I wanted to see what kind of life you lived, for you to act this way. I'm not sure why, but you interest me, said Naruto. Perhaps even a monster like me crave for companionship. After all, my goals are so large. Why should only one person get to enjoy them? Who are you? What are you? She said. It's hard to explain. You, on the other hand, tell me, with those things that you've been put through, and yet you still fight. I can give you a reason to fight. I can give you purpose. She looked at him confused. There is no purpose, she said. I don't have any reason to go on, but sometime my body still responds in a way to do so. It is pointless. This conversation is pointless because the moment you get bored with me, you're either going to throw me away or kill me. I suppose it's because of your past. It's hard to trust. But then again, how could you trust someone that just drank a whole bunch of people? I wouldn't trust me either, but how about something else? What if I could give you the strength so you could no longer be anyone's property, be anyone's tool, be anyone's toy to play with? She looked up at him confused. Why? Why me? I'm nothing. I'm not important. That's the point. Your life is unremarkable. You're just a normal girl who has it bad. Horrendous, I suppose. There is nothing good that you've experienced since you were 4 years old. It has all been pain and suffering, even when you thought your friends were there. Hunger at nights, pain, anguish was something that always was in your life. But now, I can change that because I have the power to change destinies. And I want to start with you. So how about it? Would you like me to allow you to become stronger? To give you the strength to gain your revenge? To hunt them down? All that put you through hell? For you to skin them alive? Finally, have a fighting chance? All you have to do is to take my hand, he said. Vados looked towards his hand. In the flashback, she did take his hand. That is why she was here. Naruto did not know why he chose her. It was as he said. Well, there were multiple factors. She caught his attention. Her fighting back. Her features, perhaps even that. Her life that she lived, the anguish. Or maybe it's because she was so underwhelming. Not a powerful person, not cursed with the nine tails or something. She was just a girl that had it bad, had it horrible. And perhaps he was even craving some companionship. After all, his goals are really large. There needs to be someone there to revel in his victory once he achieves it. Even monsters had monsters by their side. However, how to make her stronger? Naruto had learned a lot of things about himself. Since being able to feed off chakra, he's learned the aspect of chakra. He's learned the sentience of understanding what the life energy truly is. Those three men that he just absorbed were professionals in their fields. Different biology with the human form. As Naruto wanted to ensure that he doesn't end their life with what he was planning to do. It was very risky and very dangerous, but it would make her powerful. Greatly so. Time skip. 3 Kumo ninjas. 2 of them dead, the other one in severe pain and anguish. However, a massive wall was broken down as someone was thrown with such force. Glowing blue. However, all of that receded back. The woman was picked up by her throat. I told you it was pointless. Naruto said, sinking his teeth into her neck, causing her to cry out. As he drained not just her chakra but the entire two tails out of her. Lucky him. He's been looking for another Jinchuriki and he happened to find one of them. The two-tailed Jinchuriki on a mission. Sensing the abnormal chakra rage inside of her, he stalked her and her team, wiping them out. She transformed, yes. However, she was no match to what Naruto was right now. And thus, just like many before her, she was absorbed. Naruto made his way off, not caring as he tossed her corpse down. The last survivor, trying to do something but unable to. When the scouting team arrived, they tried to locate them as they were returning back in due today. They found the massacre. Immediately, the survivor was brought in. The Raikage was alerted the moment the survivor woke up. The man was a massive, burly man with dullish blonde hair. He was known as A as he entered the room. The sole survivor of the mission started to retell what happened and give a great description of the individual that did it. Immediately, the Raikage was aware of who it was. The public movement that here is in place on Naruto had gained a lot of traction. However, more and more people have been claiming his description in many attacks. And this was not the first time he's been to the Land of Lightning. The Raikage was obscenely mad when he heard about this, wanting revenge for this boy. He wanted him dead or alive, as his people would put a foot into this race to hunting this Naruto Uzumaki down. Time skip. Naruto slaughtered many of the brightest minds across the elemental nation, so he had the knowledge to do this. Hooked up to several machines was none other than Vados, still in an unconscious state. Finally, Naruto supplied the machine with what it desired: energy, chakra, wonderful, lavish chakra. It came in different colors: blue, red, white. No, that was something else. Naruto watches everything turn critical in front of his eyes. The smile that graced his features when the entire place started to erupt though. No, this was off, he said, looking around. An explosion went off directly in his face, throwing Naruto through solid steel. His body crashed against it, denting it. However, he pulled himself up. Smoke and dust greeted him, until he saw, within that dust and smoke, those beautiful silver eyes. He smiled. Time skip. A large man was crawling on the ground. What's wrong? Feeling defenseless, helpless. The man heard as he looked up. He pleaded for his life. I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't do this, he begged. Come on now. After what you see me do to your guards, do you really think I came here just to talk? Vados reached as she picked the man up by his throat. Given his rather large size, it was an impressive feat upon itself. She plunged her hand into his stomach. I've always wondered, if I reach into your gut, what exactly would I pull out? She said, ripping out his insides. She dropped him to the ground after. His pain subsided into something more horrendously agonizing. She smiled. She did not stop stepping into his head until there was nothing left. He was the second one. She turned and looked towards Naruto. Her face twisted in a wicked smile. She stepped towards him. Is this how you feel every time? She said. More or less, he said to her. It's so amazing, she said to him. She's been awake for 2 weeks now. Naruto had injected permanently, twisting her own DNA with that of the tail beasts, allowing her aspect of the blue flames, the powerful healing from Kurama, and more aspect of their more animal nature, their more feral side. Her power had skyrocketed from what it was, seeing that it was nothing before. Her strength alone and speed from her genetical alteration put her on Jonin level, and she's not even truly tapped into that power. It also altered her sense of mind as well. The power, the leadership, to know that you are better than someone else, that you can snuff their life out that easily. She jumped on Naruto and wrapped her legs around him, and her lips interlocked with his. Naruto pulled back as she looked at him, as she proceeded to lick her lips. She was hungry for something else now. And despite the massacre that was just committed, the look in Naruto's eyes, he seemed to be hungry as well. And that was for her body. He ripped her clothes off piece by piece, her doing the same to him, as they further wrecked the entire place. While that was going on, news was flying around the entire elemental nation. Naruto had purposely kidnapped people from some of the major nations, scientists, people that were the top of their field to help with Vados transformation. Therefore, his name was now global news, and he was being hunted by every single goddamn nation. Time skip. What? The Tishikage said. He wanted to send a message. There was a man lying on the hospital bed. As the Kunoichi removed his shirt, showing the message, a team had found the location of this Naruto Uzumaki. With the entire world hunting for him, you had to find that at least someone would find him. Yes, and a team had. However, it turns out that he has a partner. Someone who was just as wicked as him. And they allow this one to live, carved into the man's flesh, with his own nails was, "Your time is coming soon." A direct threat sent towards the Tishikage after allowing this one to live. It seems like this threat was much bigger than they originally thought. When word reached him about the Mizukage, a woman known as Meitarumi, believed that this was an enemy that they had to battle on all sides. However, the Tishikage dismissed it, as Naruto had recently been at Kiri. After finding out that the Six Tails was on the run, someone that he devoured, while his apprentice was ripped apart in front of his eyes by Vados. However, neither the Raikage or the Tishikage wanting to attend any meeting about anything at all, believing that they could handle the threat on their own, a mistake that they would come to regret. At Konoha, we find Hiruzen Sarutobi receiving the letter. However, he was not the only one. Rasa, the Kazekage, also received it, but the son has not been directly involved with any of this, so he want no part of this. Konoha was the only one to actually cooperate, given that that is the village that he originated from, so they could put a common enemy to rest once and for all. Time skip. Two men were walking down the road. One of them was a man known as Kakuzu, a man that was much older than he looked. The other one was Hidan. They were both blessed with special qualities that, well, not exactly blessed. It was something that the both of them went after and they achieved. Unfortunately though, they came across someone that could rip them, well, from those special qualities. They gazed upwards. "I can't tell you how happy I am to see you too. Judging from the clothing, you're the famous Akatsuki if I'm not mistaken. You have no idea how long I've been searching for you guys." "Who the hell is that?" Hidan said, not in the mood to be wasting time with some idiot. Well, then again, he could give him as a blessing to Lord Jashin. Kakuzu narrowed his eyes though. "Naruto Uzumaki," he said. Knowing many things and knowing just how much was on this individual's head, he was amongst the top public enemies of Konoha. Naruto smiled. "You've heard of me." "Fantastic," he said. Moments later, "You little shit! You're not taller than me," said Naruto. Hidan was on the ground, without his arm, without his legs. Two golden chains were pinning him to the ground. Kakuzu was lying a distance away. His chest was no longer there. His body was dried up. Hidan was cursing at the top of his throat. The entire place has been ripped apart. Because of their battle, Hidan was pissed, despite being unable to move. "Even if I can't move my arms or legs, I'll bite you until you die," he said. "You can't kill me. I'm immortal! You've said that like 100 times. Then again, let me tell you something. Naruto said, leaning over. Everything can die. Soon enough, I'll be away from this category. He sank his teeth down into Hidan. The man struggled to move, but he was unable to. What the hell is this? Hidan said, feeling everything slowly drain away from him. As Naruto pulled back once he was done, there was no life left in Hidan. Every ounce of essence was sucked out of him. Naruto looked up into the sky, feeling the warm sensation flew into him, making him stronger, vastly stronger. There was a reason why Vados was not here. There was a lot to be done, and not much time to do it. Vados was not like him. She could not absorb chakra. However, because of the genetical alteration, she became a beacon. A beacon that was able to search and locate the tail beasts. Rather fantastic. However, now Naruto had the members of the organization. Itachi, Uchiha, Kisame, Sorcerer, Deidara, and their so-called leader, Pain. Those eyes. Going back into the members of the Nine Tails. Now that is something. As he sped through every axis of the members that all lead back towards the land of rain. So he's a god, huh? Well then, call me the god killer, said Naruto. As he made his way, not to the rain. There was things that he had to do first. Time skip. As everyone gathered, they were holographic projections. They were all greeted by the serious gaze of their leader, the leader of their organization, Pain. They waited for his command. Zetsu recently found the corpse of Deidara and Kakazu. What? Is this a joke? You mean the ones that are known for, well, not dying, died? Voice Kisame, finding this rather hilarious, not sad. This isn't a joke. The serious tone put him back in his place. This was done by Naruto Uzumaki. Turns out that this boy is no normal child. He's also the holder of the Nine Tails. Itachi remained quiet, not saying anything, not that he usually would. So he's our next target, said Deidara. That is not the only problem. He's after the tail beasts. He's already taken a few. We have no idea where he's storing these beasts, but we will find out. All of you, put aside what you're doing and hunt him down and bring him to me. Take precautions. This threat is not like any normal threat that is roaming around. The danger level is truly unknown. So are his abilities and powers. So far, he's been able to do a lot without most people seeing what he's been able to do. So do not take any unnecessary risk, but bring him back alive. We need the tail beasts' locations of what exactly he's done with them. Zetsu will give you the location because he's not hiding, it seems. Time skip. Standing on a mountain platform was Naruto, gazing down at the people down below. They were like ants from this distance. As he was simply standing there, he has been doing so for the past 3 hours. He's not a complete psychopath, he do have his reasons. Waiting, that is what he was doing. Waiting for someone. Well, he supposed that he was more than one. He could smell the chakra. He could taste it in the air. And he could also see it. However, Vados, because of the mutation, the alteration of her genes, she was essentially a brand new tail beast, which allowed her to sense the power of the others. While Naruto was able to see and smell and taste chakra itself, he could not do that unless he was in the vicinity. Take the Land of Fire for example. He could be at the border and sense a tail beast within Konoha. That was how far his sense stretched. But she, on the other hand, she had a sensor. She knew where they were, and for the past couple of weeks, they have been rounding them up. But there was something that Naruto had to take care of. Finally, he said. Tiny spiders came, falling from the sky. They all exploded. Up above was a bird. A massive white bird that flapped its wings. Standing on said bird was Deidara of the Akatsuki, and Sasori as well. There was no need for the leader to send those other two. I told you that we had this under control. You see now, Sasori my man, he said. Can you finally admit once and for all that my art is a truly and only blessed art that should be worshipped? You talk too much, Sasori said. If you haven't noticed, there is nothing there. What? Deidara said, looking over. Where the hell did he go? As they turned their gaze to see Naruto, having avoided the explosion. However, he was stopped by the massive Kisame holding Samehata. Itachi standing there with one arm, the arm sleeve flapping in the wind, as he rested it calmly against his chest. So this is the punk, huh? Kisame said with a smile on his face. It's been a long time since someone has been able to get the entire world against him so quickly. I must say, I'm a bit jealous. It looks like fun, Kisame said. Oh, you have no idea, Naruto said. You don't seem surprised. Itachi said calmly, observing the individual. Quite aware of who exactly he was, more than just the nine-tailed Jinchuriki. After all, he was a very intelligent person who kept tabs on things. Of course I'm not. I knew that sooner or later that you guys would be coming for me. I just had to keep myself open so that your spy would know where I was. So the rumors are true. You do gain information from your victims. I see Konoha is a very smart place, Naruto said, able to figure that out. Then again, it was pretty obvious. So, are you guys here to take me to your leader? Perhaps wondering what I did with the other tail beasts. Where is that companion of yours? Kisame said. We heard that you weren't alone. Unfortunately, she's busy right now. There's a lot of things to do for the end after all. The end. What exactly is that about? Kisame said. It's a shame. You won't be able to see it, because you would be long dead by then, Naruto said. Kisame chuckled. Hey, you two, he said. Back off. He's mine. Kisame. Itachi said calmly. Remember what you were told. Do not underestimate him. Don't you worry, Itachi. He's not the only one that can siphon chakra. Is that right, Samehata? He said. Samehata exploded out of the bandages. Kisame was surprised. You're making Samehata so happy. Let her feed, he said, leaping forward, swinging the blade at Naruto. However, as the blade was inches away from Naruto's face, he flashed away. Itachi's eyes went wide, as all they saw was a yellow flash. Naruto hit Kisame to the right. Kisame wasn't able to properly react. To the left, to the sky. All they could see was a ball of flash. Naruto circled Kisame so fast that the small little flashes were occurring so much that it became a miniature ball like the goddamn sun. The problem was those flashes were much too small to show that kind of light. That meant he was doing this at least 100 times in a small amount of time to compact it that way. Deidara gazed down, hailing from the hidden stone, quite aware of that technique. That's The fourth Hokage's technique. Now you understand why we should take caution. Deidara frowned as Itachi activated his Sharingan, trying to slow down the pace of Naruto movement through his eyes. However, by the time it came to a stop, Kisame was on the ground. Kisame had over 1,000 cuts all over his body. He was bleeding heavily. He got the crap beaten out of him, and all it took was a few seconds. Naruto was holding Samehata in his hand. The blade tried to eject itself from his grasp. It stabbed Naruto. However, Naruto held it tight. As the blade started to crumple away, losing its force, losing its sentience, losing its life. The next moment, Naruto dropped the broken Samehata. Kisame tried to reach for the blade. However, Naruto drove his heel so hard down into his left shoulder socket. The violent cracking sound caused Kisame to howl in agonizing pain. That man was an S-rank ninja, and yet he was taken down so easily. You know, when the element of surprise is taken out, it's rather easy to call your opponent towards you, to make them believe that you're in danger. But in actuality, they are in danger. I mean, can't you see it? You have those eyes of yours activated now. Don't you see what is going on? Itachi had checked the area, making sure there wasn't any traps. His Sharingan never misled him before. So then, what the hell was this? You have no idea, do you? None of you, of what exactly you've walked into. Naruto said, stepping forward. Just because you can merely see a glimpse of what the essence of Chakra truly is, you think you can take me on? You so-called S-rank ninjas. The ground break as a clay centipede wrapped around Naruto's leg, twisting around his upper half as well. Flying down was the two Akatsuki members. Itachi snapped his gaze up towards them. It's a trap, he said, trying to alert them. Something was off. His Sharingan was picking up a faint detection of something that not even his eyes could see, but that should be impossible. Confused by the statement. Oh, I doubt he will have one in place after all. One wrong move, and I'll turn you into dust. You will be the final product of my explosion. Deidara said, as cocky as he could ever be. You mean like this, said Naruto as he moved. Cats, Deidara said, having purposely weakened the explosion so it wouldn't kill him. However, a warp, a rift of sorts appeared in front of Naruto, and every single essence of the blast was sucked inside, leaving Naruto completely unharmed. They were all shocked at what they just saw. Itachi, realizing that this spatial warping was what his eyes were feigning to see. He kicked his eyes up a notch, awakening the Mangekyo, and then he saw it. He just needed more strength to push his eyes to the next level. There were spatial distortion in the area, something that his original Sharingan missed completely. But he could not tell exactly what they were. A space to another dimension. A space to the... His eyes widened. For Itachi to be raising his tone, you should know that something was wrong. However, it was too late. Deidara turned as the space in front of him opened up. The explosion blew his head clean off. It was shocking. The bird started to fall. Leaping off it towards Itachi's side was none other than Sorcery. What the hell was that, he asked, in his gruff voice. This entire place, the space is not stable. You know, absorbing the memory of a few hundred people isn't normal on its own. However, There are some people that have the glimpses of doing something great, but they don't have the mindset to truly pull it off. Like my father, for example, the fourth Hokage Minato Namikaze. Now that caught them off guard. This technique that he has, it is something that he upgraded from the second Hokage, making it better, making it faster. And over the years I've absorbed so much to learn so much more. And now, the space itself is under my control, Naruto said. The space below, the both of them opened as they jumped away. However, the path that they jumped towards opened as well. Itachi immediately activates Amaterasu, setting the place aflame as he watches space try to swallow it. However, he could not track where the flames went. He set the black flames on Naruto as well, but Naruto did not move, he simply stood there. I suppose my ability is just too broken. It's a cheat really. As you can see, Itachi saw the space around Naruto warping, preventing the flames from touching him. This technique drains so much chakra that I can only keep it up for about 30 minutes. And I have more chakra than you can even imagine. And yet, only 30 minutes. So I suppose if you were able to wear me out for that amount of time, there is a 2% chance that you might be able to kill me. Why 2, you must be wondering? Well, I've not only gained the knowledge of the people that I've absorbed, but all their techniques, all the experience through their chakra, everything that they were, and everything that their body would be. So realistically, your chances are perhaps 0.2%. Itachi locked eyes with Naruto and placed him within the Tsukiyomi, despite the strain on his form. Naruto blinked as he found himself strapped to a cross in a black world that belongs to Itachi. The man appeared in front of him. You flaunt your techniques. You flaunt your abilities. Just because they're great doesn't mean that they're unstoppable. You should know this. Every technique has a weakness. You just have to find it. And I suppose you believe this is my weakness, said Naruto. You tampering with my mind. Oh, you pitiful fool. I wonder why so many have feared you for so long. Was it because of those eyes? The aura that you carry about yourself? However, you should know, my ability is not just excluded towards what I can do in the moment. It's an activation. And now that you're here, Itachi's eyes went wide as he looked down, blood dripping out of his chest. Itachi blinked as he was back in the real world. Naruto's technique wasn't something that he was using once in a while. It was an activation of distorted time and space, tagged and tied to a seal that he created, having the knowledge of seal masters in his head, people that study the art. As he stated before, some people had knowledge but they just didn't know how to execute it, and he simply combined them all. The space behind Itachi opened up and a blade ran right through him. And because he was stuck with Naruto inside of his own genjutsu space, it wasn't something that he was able to, defend from. Sasori was being bombarded by weapons, collections that Naruto had gathered over the years, slaughtering people to get them. The spaces were opening and weapons were flying out. But that wasn't all. They were also connected with the High-Rishin, allowing Naruto to teleport each and every one of them without moving a finger. Sasori tried to escape his puppet, but his body was bombarded. Immediately he released ungodly flames from the canister in his hand, trying his best to burn them to cinders. As Itachi was fading away, he was going to die. He could feel it, but he couldn't die here. This thing in front of him would doom the entire world. He will throw the world into a warring state once again. And Itachi knew that he could not beat him. So he had to make a sacrifice. As Sasori was, bombarded with weapons until they could no longer stop. His body was ripped down to the ground. Naruto making his way towards him and pulling out the canister on his heart. Sasori's body immediately died down as Naruto siphoned the entire chakra out of it. Kisame was slowly dying on the ground. Samehata was his healing ability. It was a blade that allowed him to heal himself. Without that, well, the injuries were too much, the blood loss was too much. Even a monster can fall. Naruto siphoned all of his chakra out, making himself even more stronger, as he realized that Itachi was no longer there. Quickly making his way, as fast as he could, one of his eyes now completely white, he sacrificed it in order to rewrite his own death, as he had to get away from the situation. People must know, the world must know the entire truth, that they weren't dealing with an average individual here. They were taking him for granted, believing that he wasn't that much of a threat. However, there was only one person that he could give this message to. Unfortunately though, boom! An explosion sent Itachi hurling back. Flipping and twisting, he landed on his feet. She dropped from the heaven like a bomb. It was none other than Vados. Her body was coursing with an aura that was making the ground shake. The power raining through her. You know, on a normal circumstance, you would be a hell of an opponent to face one-on-one. However, you're just too out of your league. He turned as Naruto was behind him. When I was explaining my whole thing, didn't you understand what I meant by truly controlling space? Because if you don't, just look and see. Itachi, one eye was able to witness the Hiroshin marker all over the goddamn place, as they were simply branded there in mid-air. So that means all I need to do is to do this. Naruto said, stepping towards him. Itachi whipped out the kunai. However, his one eye had to work overtime to try to find the correct one, the one that Naruto was going to jump to. However, Naruto was running towards him with no sign of stopping, so he had no choice. Amaterasu, he said, sending the flames towards Naruto, but the space in front of him opened, as that is what he needed. Right as it closed, he sent a kunai directly towards Naruto's temple. However, Naruto caught the goddamn thing and disappeared. Itachi tilted his head as the kunai passed his face. He swift around and blocked Naruto's fist with his own. Naruto jumped back. The next moment, a fist collided with Itachi's cheek, his one eye widening in shock. Oh, one more thing. It isn't just myself I can move. Itachi, the moment he made contact with Naruto, was branded, and thus Naruto started to beat the living crap out of him, sending scowling on the ground. Itachi coughed up blood, his one swollen eye looking up as the heavens seemed to part. But that was not the heavens. It was 5 Naruto with supermassive Rasengans. He knew in that moment that it was over. Everything that he'd done was a waste. All of it was for naught. As he gazed up towards his death, realizing that this was simply a foe that he could not fight at all, he sped through hand sign. That was the final thing that he did. Boom! The entire place was reduced to rubbles. Standing a distance away watching was Vados. However, something was wrong with her. She seemed to be razzled. out of control. She had not even tried to enter the fight after destroying the area. Why? Making his way towards her. She greeted him with her eyes that were filled with so much anger. However, Naruto walked without hesitation, stopping right in front of her face. "Calm down," he said. Her mind started to relax. You see, the Hidden Stone was so cocky that, despite knowing that Naruto had a partner, the only thing that was released was the fact that he had a partner by some of the other stone ninjas on the hunt. They didn't reveal descriptions or anything. That was their problem, believing they could handle it themselves. The Three Tails had reformed in a deep sea water. Kiri was on specialized watch for Naruto. Vados, on the other hand, without a host, the tail beasts are much more susceptible to having their mind controlled. Vados simply lured the thing towards her, as she had to stay a distance or she would be swamped. Not to say that Naruto could not go there and go up against the village, but he wanted to annihilate the Akatsuki, and he trusted her to do this. However, all of the other tail beasts that has been gathered so far was all inside of her. The only ones that Naruto had gathered were the 2, and he had the 9. The 6 tails, she had it. The 4 tails, she had it. Not to mention the power of the 2 and 9. She also had that as well, courtesy of Naruto with her transformation. After all, she was going to be the stepping stone to the finales of his plan. As he realized that she calmed herself down, Vados had slaughtered a lot. After all, in her eyes, she had no purpose before, no will to live, and Naruto gave her that. One might think that she was never an evil person, but after what the world has done to her, what it has taken away from her, so much. She's always been dark on the inside, but never had the power to truly release it, to truly show it. But Naruto gave her away. She shook her head, finally, returning back. As she proceeded to calm down, Naruto's hands waved over her. The last absorption. "It's getting a lot," she said. "I can feel it," said Naruto. "But you have to remember that you need to stay in control. Remember, you are the catalyst for my plan." She nodded her head. She wanted to do this for him. Screw the world. Screw all the other peoples that live here. They meant nothing to her. The only one that she cared about was him. And he cared for her. That was all that she desired. She was willing to sacrifice her life, her soul, her body. It didn't matter what, to ensure that he succeed with his plans. After all, if it wasn't for him, her life would still be hell right now. And her reason to go on would just be pain and anguish, constantly being used, taken advantage of. So it didn't matter what she had to do. She would do it without hesitation. Naruto smiled. Her loyalty knew no bound. "Let's go finish off the Akatsuki, shall we?" he said to her. She smiled. "You see him, right?" she said. "Of course I do," said Naruto. "Just want him to think that I don't." Naruto vanished. The entire platform ripped out of the earth, trapping Zetsu in mid-air. As Naruto held him there, controlling the space around the earth that he ripped out. Zetsu tried to move, but Naruto brought his hand out and created an electrified fence that tied around the massive rock. Touching it caused him an exceed amount of pain. Both him and White Zetsu were trapped. "I was wondering when you were going to show up to see the end of the fight," Naruto said, only for the space behind him to open up. His body was being sucked into a different dimension. However, shock, confusion, as that dimension was forcefully shut. The space was ruptured and cracked. A man with the orange mask stepped back, being the final ace in the hole, as Zetsu had quickly went to find him, fearing the worst as he watched. Kisame got manhandled, and now he was back and he wasn't alone. The problem was, all Zetsu truly saw was the yellow flash technique, believing if they caught him off guard they would win, but his spatial rift, his kamui, was cancelled. The masked man was rather shocked as he tried to escape. He sucked himself into his dimension, leaving Vados there with Zetsu. Zetsu tried to escape but Vados wouldn't allow him. You're going to wait here until he returns, as Naruto vanished as well. The masked man returned back to his domain, shocked at how even that happened. Hello there. He spun around and jumped away. Naruto was standing there. Nice place you have here. The way he was shocked, if the mask could have dropped off it would. How am I here? Well, it's simple. I was able to taste this dimension of yours. Rather lovely, I must say. I would love to get my hands on this. Naruto placed his hand down on one of the cubes. The entire place started to shake. The masked man immediately sped through hand sign and launched a fireball towards him, which was rather crazy given the mask, but still. That was just one miracle of Chakra. Yet, it did not reach him. It stopped. It was rather stupid of you to allow me to get into your domain, Naruto said. You see, my knowledge on space-time is, well, boundless. Right now. There's a lot of people in this world that seeks to understand the maths behind it. All of them are off in a way. They're missing a key component that the others have. And I've absorbed hundreds, learning their knowledge. And with the ability to actually use it, I've learned a few things. Like this. Naruto said, stepping forward as he was now in front of the masked man. His fingers on his mask. The masked man jumped away without his mask. How it was removed he did not know. Naruto held it and looked at the man. Obito Uchiha, to think that you were the one that did that to my parents. How unfortunate. Then again, I devoured their chakra, so I suppose you're not so bad. Then again, you did try to kill me when I was a child. How do you know who I am? Are you not paying attention? I gained the memory of the people I absorb. Oh yeah, I absorb my appearance as well. So I know who exactly you are. It seems you're much more formidable than I thought, Ninetales. However, I will not allow you or anyone else to stand in my way to get what I deserve. You will be mine, and you will hand over the other tail pieces. Is that so? Yes, that is so. He said leaving his dimension, however, he could not. What's wrong? Having some problem finding the door? Naruto said with a smile. What have you done? Obito said. I told you it was a stupid idea to let me in here. Then again, you could not do much about it. You see, just like Itachi's so-called Tsukiyomi, I also have the power to melt, to burn, to morph your dimension into what I desire. So think of me as your god, and you are stuck, because there is no one that knows much about space-time than me on this planet. And I'll use that for you to see right here. Every single cube flattened as they turn into a fully stocked Earth, combining together. The weather, space itself started to be affected by the inside and out, as Naruto was simply moving his arms around, merging this space to the normal dimension and others. Obito watched as weapons start to pour in. Grass, the environment started to change. As I said, Naruto said as his body started to merge with the existence around him. I am God here. Obito tried to move but his legs were frozen to the ground, only for a dagger to stab right into his chest, missing his heart by an inch. He collapsed while he tried to, but his body was strung up. The wound was not bleeding though. The space would not allow it. You ever hear of someone dying from 1,000 cuts? I learned about it in the past, from someone's memory. I want to try it. Naruto's voice was ringing in, without making an appearance, as he ripped Obito apart. In the outside world as Naruto appeared, he glanced at his hands. He imagined having that power in the real world, but he did not. It was just in there. However, he would make the impossible into reality. Naruto held his hand down, causing the lightning to dissipate. Zetsu collapsed on the ground, having been severely hurt. He tried to move but Vados stepped into his back. She held him there. As Naruto made his way over towards him, he gripped the both of them before draining White Zetsu. Black Zetsu tried to make himself into a sludge, trying to go into the earth. However, he simply fell through a loop of space, dropping right back in Naruto's hand. Naruto held his mouth open and proceeded to devour him, not just his chakra but his entire being, because he was a beast that was similar to the tail beast in a way. Naruto spat after a while. He had a really disgusting taste. However, since a long while, the memories hadn't been so bad, but now this one, Naruto was able to witness so much. As he looked towards Vados once he was finished. "What did you see?" she said. Naruto started to chuckle. "A different path for us. A different way." He stepped towards her. "For us to be even greater than we are now. Than I even imagined." Hearing that, as he extended his arm just like when she took that proposition, she took it, and they made their way off. Time skip. Having received nothing back from where the Akatsuki members went, fearing the worst, because the rings were not connecting one bit. Something was wrong. Really, really wrong. That was the thoughts going through the head of Nagato at the moment. However, his chest, his mind, and everything started to race. The way his heart was beating fast, it felt like his chest was jumping off, running on 2 legs, because he felt it. At first there was nothing, and then immediately he activates his most powerful path. Tendo, Conan, who was simply observing the village, waiting back to know what happened. Watch as the day that wasn't even bright before became night. The look on her face was one of pure shock and frightened. She couldn't believe what she was looking at. In the sky was at least 50 tail beast bomb. All of them. Every single one of them at their full mass. And not just any tail beast bomb. The ones that could be generated by the goddamn 9 tails. It was Vados. She was controlling the water under her. She stood on it. Naruto standing on it as well. She was maintaining it. And for the 50 clones that were tethered to Naruto, when they all at the same time create a tail beast bomb and fire them, Tendo flew into the sky and held his hand out. There's no way that the Prida Path could absorb them all. He flew above Conan. "Stay where you are," he said, knowing that her efforts would only get her killed. The problem was, as powerful as he was, he could not stop them all. Everyone saw it. and they saw themselves being reduced to ashes. The village was hit. Only the path, that area where he stood, was he able to protect. However, he started to fall from the sky because Nagato blacked out for a moment. He used so much power in that almighty push, causing the explosion to go off in the air, detonating around 7 of them when they hit together. So he started to follow the path out of commission, leaving this area safe, saving a couple hundred people. However, that did not make up for the others that were slaughtered. Descending down on her water cloud, with Naruto standing by her side. Despite what he just did, he still had so much more chakra left. Even if the Ninetales had released all of that through his chakra, the beast would not die, perhaps drained but not died. But the problem was, every single person that Naruto absorbed, their chakra became a part of him. And he absorbed an entire village of Kunoichis that had chakra. It didn't matter if it was small. He still absorbed them all and a lot more. Konan caught him with her paper. However, raising her hand into the sky, blades, generated from pure water, rained down, courtesy of Vados, as she started to destroy the tallest building, causing Nagato to snap back into play. He coughed up blood. Konan immediately flew. She tried to disarm and destroy as much as she could so it would not harm him. Naruto jumping down. He literally break through solid steel, racing through the building as Konan tried to reach him first. Her paper clones trying to stop Vados, but they were nothing compared to her. Naruto ripped out of the earth. Well, not the earth per se, but out of the bottom layer of Nagato domain. Landing inside, a massive rod shot towards him, but Chain shot from his back and wrapped it around and threw it as it ripped into Nagato. Still out of it from what he just did. It wasn't something that he could protect against from. He wasn't even able to release his arms fully. Thus, Konan burst inside as she saw Naruto. She raced towards him only for Vados to grab her hair and threw her through the goddamn wall with enough force to break through it. Vados cracked her neck and went after her, leaving the two of them standing there. Nagato reached, pulling his arms out as he tried to pull the rod out. However, a hand placed on his shoulder, another one placed on his neck. "Don't waste your time," Naruto said as he sunk his glowing fangs into his throat and devoured his chakra. The more he drank, the more the Rinnegan started to lose its color. As the essence of the Rinnegan vanished, it completely went away. Nagato slumped over. He was gone. His eyes were dull. They didn't have the Rinnegan anymore. As Naruto blinked, his own eyes changing, showing the pattern of the Rinnegan, but they were blue. He figured that his body would take on the effects of those that he absorbed with, well, dojutsus. After all, it already did take on those that he absorbed with Kekkei Genkais. So he wasn't surprised. He wondered how all of them would mesh inside though. Then again, he did not absorb Itachi. But that wasn't a problem. He heard the chaos outside of the two women fighting. There was no doubt in his mind that Vados would win. Konan had the experience. She had the fighting battle experience, yes. And that might give her an edge if Vados wasn't medically enhanced to be the better fighter. Yes, Naruto was simply lying to himself. After all, He didn't only make her stronger, he made sure that she would be able to do what is needed to win always. That is why he had no fear sending her out alone. Besides, he could track her as well. And if someone did capture her, well, if they tried to kill her, he would simply wipe away the elemental nation. Naruto chuckled to himself. Strange. Caring about someone so much. It wasn't a bad thing, he supposed. But that did not matter right now. As he watched as Konan was taken down, Vados' body was able to heal really quickly. As she made her way back towards him. Where to now, she asks. Now we make a public appearance, Naruto said with a smile. Time skip. Hiruzen and Sarutobi immediately send word back to the two other nations. Those idiots, believing that they were untouchable, the Sand was cooperating with Konoha. They might not want to cooperate with Kiri at first, but Hiruzen spoke to Rasa face to face. As of right now, many things were suspended. The tuning exams. They had to handle this threat first. The rain had been wiped away. Thousands lost their life. There was no recovering there. Given the rain isolation and their lack of allies, it was extremely bad for them. However, the Stone and Kumo refused to cooperate. Naruto was going after the tail beasts. Imagine what and how much more powerful he would be if he got all of that power. But those idiots would not cooperate with them. They need to at least hide the goddamn tail beasts. When would they learn that they need to put aside their petty revenge, their anger? This was a world-staking threat. But they would not listen. Unfortunately though, it was too late and Hiruzen did not realize that. Time skip. Oniki was looking rather upset by his own goddamn actions. First the 4 and now the 5. After the second announcement about the tail beasts, he tried to gather them, but after arriving to where they stay, that was outside the village, well, they were gone. He feared the worst, that his own arrogance would get him and his people killed. However, the Raikage was fearing no better, because just 2 days later, the Raikage was racing towards the scene, believing that the Rankyo Valley was the best place, armed with guards. However, it would take him at least a few minutes to get there. The problem was by the time he arrived, the place was destroyed. Naruto was currently taking every single ounce of chakra from the 8 tails. As he tossed the body of the 8 tails on the ground, seeing his brother lifeless, the Raikage lost his shit. He threw himself at Naruto, obliterating the area as he crashed. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna kill you, because I need you, said Naruto, as he looked at the man. The Raikage launched himself at Naruto, but Naruto was gone, having secluded himself within his own dimension. The man stood there, rushing back to his brother the next second. There was no life left in B. His fist slammed into the ground. This was all his fault. Back at the Hidden Leaf village, receiving no word from the other two, Hiruzen decided that the others and himself need to make a move. Even though they didn't have the tail beasts, they did have 2 others secluded away. Raza wasn't an idiot, realizing what was gonna happen to his home, and they didn't have the firepower to fight off this monster. However, to ensure that whatever happens, that Gaara, his weapon, would return, his people were sent there as well. Perhaps the only place that Naruto would not be able to find them, secluded and locked away. Everything that they had to stop him from getting the one and seven tails. It wasn't hard to convince the Land of Waterfall, the leader Shibuki cared for the girl known as Fu, who had the seven tails. The problem was, at Mount Miyaboku, there were sand ninjas there. Jiraiya was there as well. The toads were ready to show that they weren't against them. And Raza, despite his grievances against the village, realized that there wouldn't be a village left, his or theirs, if this boy gained what he was after. These six tails and the three tails were gone. The others were taken and they weren't even aware. Two villages now has been destroyed. If he gained any more power, especially Tail Beast power, they will be doomed. Thus, as they waited there, Gaara did not get along with anyone here. Strangely enough though, the calmness of the nature, it calmed the beast and him as well. Fu was just happy to make friends. Unfortunately though, this was not a friendly environment at the moment. It was a state of worry. They had no idea how Naruto got the 6 and 3. How he was able to find out where they were exactly located. However, they have to make sure that he did not get any others. While that was going on, Vados was within Naruto's dimension still. Vados was trying her best so they would not combine. It was overwhelming, but she needed to keep them separate. She kept on repeating in her mind why she was doing this, and it was for him, the one that gave her life reason, purpose. She had to do this. She couldn't allow the power to combine that was inside of her. She had to keep it apart. Thus she did. Now their problem was, they had no idea that Vados could sense the tail beasts. So when Naruto pulled up on Mount Miyaboku, Evertoad felt it. It felt like he was an abomination to nature itself, a sickness, a virus. As he descended upon the location, Jiraiya and the others heard explosion. What's that? Fu said. As the toads immediately moved out. It can't be, said Jiraiya. That I'm here. They spun around as Naruto was within the chamber. Gaara, taking notice of him. Ah, hello Godfather. You know who I am? Yes, so don't bother wasting your time. I know everything. Come on now, after everything I've done, you can't expect me to return back to what I once was. You've seen the craziness behind my actions, those I've slaughtered without mercy. Jiraiya nodded his head. I knew that, he said. And I know the moment we saw each other once again, this would not be a conversation about anything regarding the past. It would be a fight to the death. I suppose you're right. Then again, I can simply do this. Naruto held his hand out and both Gaara and Fu was sucked into a dimension. They had tried to move, but their body was forcefully pulled inside. And he wasn't the one that did it. He simply opened the dimension. Jiraiya cursed as he missed. He missed them. He wasn't able to grab any of them. Wait! Don't do this. You would be killing so many. I don't know what you have planned, but you can't handle all that power, Jiraiya said. Playing on sympathy. That would be more effective if you actually know who I was. Then again, where were you? Don't worry, I'm not gonna kill you. I actually need as much people as possible. That is why I haven't gone to war with the elemental nation. Mostly the great nations. Oops, did I spill my plan? Then again, you won't be able to reach in time. See you soon. Then again, I won't. With that, Naruto went to his own dimension and quickly grabbed both Gaara and Fu, stunning them after all. In here he was God. He sank his teeth into Gaara's neck, drinking him dry and throwing him away. He did the same thing to Fu. As he stopped, the one who actually sucked them here, Vados, from absorbing them. She was struggling to hold on. "Don't worry. Just a few more minutes," said Naruto. "Just keep them apart." She nodded her head to show that he really did not care what anyone think or what they could do to him. He pulled up in Konoha, in front of everyone, right in front of the Hokage's tower. No, that was rather shocking. He smiled upwards. Hiruzen immediately turned his gaze. He went through the window. As Naruto's presence was sensed by all, he immediately jumped down. Emergency evacuation. People were being escorted away. Never did he expect that Naruto would come here, so nonchalant. "Hi there, old man," said Naruto. "We have a lot to discuss, I suppose. Perhaps because this was once my home, I believe that this is where I should actually start things." The next moment, Vados arrived, having been pulled out. Naruto held his hand to her. Just like before, he said. She took his hand as Naruto sent the power into her. Before he sent her away, Vados was deep within the land of fire, away from Konoha. The Anvus descended upon Naruto to end his life. Golden chains bind them though and slam them into the ground. Would you guys hold on? It's just getting started. The next moment, a colossal amount of power was sensed by everyone. They all paused in what they were doing as the land of fire was ripped apart. Finally, the power merged together. And it did not waste any time. The full, complete form of the goddamn Ten Tails. The mere sight of the beast was power. It was a shocking sight to see, a sight to behold. However, she started to go out of berserk, destroying everything. She wasn't a part of the Ten Tails. She became it because of her genetic alteration done by Naruto. But something was wrong, gravely so. Naruto took off as Hiruzen immediately started to shout orders. But that wouldn't do any good now, would it? Appearing in mid-air by, mixing and tampering with the space around his legs, mixing it to the ground and to the sky at the same time. The ten-tail gaze focused on him. However, her hand raised and sent Naruto into the earth. There were so many bones that shattered. Despite his body becoming so strong, yet he got back up as he healed immediately. He flew back towards her. "I won't fight you," said Naruto. "You remember what I asked you when we first met?" She tried to take him out of the sky, using her tails and hands, but Naruto evaded, flashing around as he spoke. "I asked you why won't you give up? I asked you, why do you keep on going? And you told me you did not know. Even before a purpose, you were unable to be truly broken. But I gave you one. And in doing so, you pledged your loyalty, your life to me. We are so close to finally achieving all that we desire. The only thing is left is for you to take control. Remember who you are. Remember who you are," he shouted. Within Vados' mind, she was being pulled apart. Finally, her consciousness, her mind was being shattered, but Naruto's words were like glue. I have to. I have to. I can't fail him," she said. "He was the one that gave her purpose again, a reason for living. He helped her slaughter those that put her through hell. She won't fail him," she screamed, as she forcefully pulled herself back together. Naruto watched as the Ten Tails was sucked in on itself. as it entered a tiny black ball. He stood there and waited. He watched as the thing then cracked. Emerging out of it was Vados. Her hair was still white. However, her body had been truly altered. Her stunning red eyes, rippling with the pattern of the Rinnegan. She was dressed in grey and white. A skin-tight upper top that was stuck to her. A coat. The very uniform was an essence of her status of being the most powerful being in the entire planet right now. Yes, she was stronger than Naruto at the moment. Before he could make her into what he made her into, he had already made her strong, but now, she was the Tail. An unlimited source of power that could constantly grow. So even if Naruto had the strength to best her right now, she would eventually best him. That was how powerful she was. However, when she saw him, the smile that graced her face, it's so amazing. Even her tone was different, as she was holding a staff in her hand. I never thought I would ever feel power like this. I can't even describe what it feels like. I suppose I won't though, she said, as she brought her hand together and produced a seed. She tossed it into the ground, and thus, a massive tree, a colossal tree rose. It went into the goddamn clouds. Naruto stepped towards her. Let us become one. Completely, she said. Despite the power, her loyalty, her respect never changed. Never waver. She placed both hands on the tree as vines went through the earth and stretched all over the planet. Many tried to escape it. They tried to fight it off. However, these vines were electrified with a strange substance that started to stun the victims. It was their chakra. It sent a pulse through their body that stunned them, long enough to wrap around them. Those that were strong enough, like the Kages, people like Jiraiya, they fought it much longer, but the numbers were in the millions. So it didn't matter how much. The animals that Mount Miyaboku, every single life form on the planet was consumed in less than 5 minutes. They were all stuck onto the vines of the tree. It is done, she said. The tree then started to stretch and injected into her back. Naruto stepped towards her as she tilted her head. Do it. With pleasure, he said as he sank his teeth into her throat. Every person that was attached to the vines started to be absorbed. Not just half, not just some. Every ounce of their chakra flew from them and flew into Naruto, and also a taste of her power. A power that constantly fixed itself over and over again. That continued to grow and get stronger. All of that power that flew from every single being, every life form on the planet, flew into Naruto. He pulled back as the connection between her and the tree vanished. The tree was dying. Every person on the planet was gone. Naruto stepped back, gripping onto his chest, gripping his head. He released a primal scream. An explosion of power. She had to put her staff in front of her as it expanded, blocking the violent uptore earth that ripped everything to sunder. It lasted for a good 5 minutes. His transformation, becoming what he is right now. When the smoke and dust finally cleared, she blinked as she stepped forward, walking, stepping into the smoke. Now that's what I'm talking about. as she finally saw him after hearing his voice, which was deeper. The power radiating off of him even surprised her. Not only did all of that power got absorbed into his system, it was multiplied by everything. So looking at him now, you should see why she was surprised by the sheer power that was coming from him. His Rinnegan did not change, it was still blue, but unlike before, it was pulsating so much. His body had remained the same in a sense, but certain aspects, its hair had turned completely blue. The dilation of Chakra was so much that it overpowered most things that was in and outside. The space around Naruto started to actually break dimensions itself. That was until he was able to suppress it. His tone had gotten deeper. His body had gotten more muscular. A perfect vessel that was even stronger, more powerful than the one that he had before. As every being on this planet, power now reside inside of him, multiplied together, creating a being of unlimited source of energy. His hunger finally felt satisfied as he thought about the weak, shriveled, small person he once was. But now, Naruto turned his gaze and raised his hand and brought it down. With a wave of his hand, he split Konoha and the entire line of fire in half. As the place opened up, Vados stood there beside him. She smiled at his rather childlike behavior and becoming the ultimate being. Their powers reached new heights. Her, a simple girl that never thought she would ever have a better life. Him, a weak young boy that believed that he would remain a cripple for the rest of his life. But now, look at them. Two untouchable beings. The next moment he pulled her in close before. His lips locked together. He pulled back after a few seconds. She was giddy, despite what she was now. "What now, my love?" she said. "As I told you before, this world is simply one world. The universe is vast, and there are many other beings out there. Many ways for us to get even more stronger. I told you that it wasn't only world domination that we were going for. This was just a stepping stone in giving us the power to elevate ourselves to greater heights. Our next target are the Otsutskis, and then everything else. Let's make this our stepping stone as a marker of where our true journey begins." Plunging his hand into the earth, Naruto started to siphon nature energy. It wasn't only chakra that he could swallow, that he could devour alone anymore. Naruto sucked the planet dry. The trees dried up. The ocean vanished away. Everything started to die. The nature started to die. Both him and Vados watched as the once lush planet crumble. "Have any regrets?" Naruto said to her. She placed her arm around him. "As long as I have you, nothing else matters." To think that I thought that doing this on my own would be more fulfilling. However, I suppose having someone that you love make things a lot better. I couldn't say it better myself, as the both of them kissed as they watched the planet die. But guys, we ends up so right here. Well, in this movie right here, guys. Perhaps I'll make a part 2, but in that part 2 they will transcend the Naruto universe. Perhaps hopping into different other worlds. Perhaps the DC world. Perhaps the Marvel world. Perhaps the Dragon Ball Z world. Perhaps many others. So yeah, if you want part 2 of this movie, in the future, just let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy and want to see more movies like this, go ahead and tell me, guys. But I'm out for now. Peace.